Let's learn how to code Cookie Clicker and maybe even some HTML and JavaScript along the way. First, we're going to set up our files. We're going to make a folder called Cookie Clicker, open it up, and inside we're going to make an HTML file, a JavaScript file, and a CSS file. Go ahead and open up the text editor of your choice. In this case, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. Go up here to File, Open Folder, and open up the folder we just made. Now let's get going. I'm going to open up the HTML file in a live server. Write some text in the HTML file to make sure everything's set up properly. Alright, wonderful. An exclamation point is going to set up a basic HTML file for us. I'm going to change the title to Cookie Clicker. Alright, now let's make the big clickable cookie. I'm going to give it an ID of big cookie. Don't forget this because we're going to use it in our JavaScript later on. Now let's write a bit of CSS. We're going to do what's called a CSS reset, where we set the margins and padding of our whole page to 0. Well, I don't know about you, but I think it's time to start styling our big cookie. I'm getting a little tired of staring at a white blank screen. I'm going to set its width and height to 200 pixels for now, and I'm going to set its background color to brown. One last step is we have to actually link our CSS to our HTML file. Doesn't look much like a cookie, does it? Don't worry, we'll take care of that in a second. But for now, while we're at it, let's also link our JavaScript file. Speaking of JavaScript, it's time to write some. Let's make a variable called cookies. Let's also make a reference to our big cookie. We're going to use document.getElementById. This is going to find the element in our HTML with the ID big cookie. We're going to create a function that runs every time we click on the cookie. This is going to add 1 to the cookie and alert its value. Every time we click, the number should be going up by 1. Alright, great. Let's get rid of that alert line since we don't need it anymore. I'm going to make another div here on our HTML page. This is going to be the cookie text. It's what's going to display how many cookies we've got. I'm going to make a third div here, call it section 1. This is going to be a literal section of our screen, and it's going to be really helpful for organizing. And we'll see why in just a second when we start writing our CSS for it. I'm going to give it a display style of flex. This is going to be really useful for arranging items within the section. I'm going to give it a width of 30 viewport width and a height of 100 viewport height, which is to say 30% of the screen wide and 100% of the screen tall. Let's align everything nice and centered. Here I'm just going to put the text above the big cookie, just a stylistic choice. Let's add some padding here just so the text isn't right at the top of the screen. And let's change the font. You can pick whatever you think looks nice, but I'm going to go with Verdana. Let's get that font a little bigger, huh? Make it bold, make it stand out. I'm going to play around with the font's color a little bit. Eventually I landed on white with a black outline. I think this is a pretty good combo in general. I'm going to make the outline a little harsher, increase the font size just a little bit more. And I think that looks quite nice right there. Let's give our cookie a little more room to breathe too. I think about 50 viewport width looks good. Our cookie's looking a little rough around the edges though. Let's give it a border radius of 50%. Finally, we've got a circle. Now let's add a hover command. We're going to turn our cursor into a pointer. There we go. Now it looks like we can click on it, can't we? One problem though, still doesn't look much like a cookie. Let's use an actual picture of a cookie instead of a boring, flat color. Make sure the background of whatever picture you're using is transparent. I'm going to save this in our folder as cookie.png. Alright, now in our big cookie, let's set the background image to cookie.png. Now you might not see the image immediately, but don't worry. It is there, it's just not positioned or sized properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the background size to cover, and we're going to set the background position to center. Nice and centered. Still looks a little small though, doesn't it? The problem is, our original picture had a lot of transparency around the edges. Let's do just a bit of image editing. I'm going to open up the picture in Paint 3D. You can use whatever art program you want, but this is the most accessible. Go ahead and tick off Resize Image with Canvas, and just go ahead and bring in the borders of the image. Alright, that looks lovely. Let's go ahead and save that, and now it should look a lot better. Alright, let's go ahead and get rid of the background color so we are just left with our cookie. I'm going to play around with the size of the cookie too. I'm going to set its width to 50%. Oof, okay. Starting to look more like a football than a cookie. Let's get rid of the height and just write in aspect ratio 1:1. This is going to make it so that regardless of what our width is, the height is going to be the exact same. Alright, let's return to our JavaScript. Because right now, although our cookies are increasing every time we click on the big cookie, it's not being reflected in that cookie text. Let's go ahead and make another variable to access our cookie's text. And now let's make a function to update both our cookies and our text at the same time. We're going to pass in a parameter of amount. This is the amount we're going to add to our cookies variable. We're going to set the text of that cookie's text element to whatever our cookies variable holds, and we're also going to add amount to cookies. Now instead of just adding 1 to our cookies, let's call that function with a parameter of 1. And beautiful. Now our text is changing to reflect how many cookies we've got. One last thing in this video, I'm going to go into our CSS. I'm going to set user select to none. Just a little quality of life thing so we're not accidentally highlighting our text. Alright, we're not exactly done yet, but we got a lot covered. Tune in for the next episode where we're going to look at animations and upgrades. Thank you for watching.